Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Bob Wagner. I'm the chair of the Hatfield Planning Board, and I'm going to open up our meeting of November 7th, 2018. I'll do so by introducing the folks here at the head table, and then we'll have a quick public forum. To my far left, Wilma Davis, our administrative assistant, and our newest member, Mike Poshek, to my immediate left. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you.
Michael is serving out the vacated term of Ron Sossi, who has moved from Hatfield, and so will fill out that position until the May elections.
Okay.
And then if he so chooses, will run for the rest of Ron's seat, which I think was a full 5-year term. So to my right, Paul Dostal, and to his right, Paul Labby. So we open up tonight very quickly with a public forum, and I want to recognize our town clerk, Lydia Isnish.
I just quickly wanted to announce the winner of the vote that was taken yesterday at the election, not for the regular election, but for the pavilion, which a lot of people voted on. We had 880 votes that we counted, 19 blanks, 2 overvotes, which is people voted for 2, and actually had 4 write-ins. A couple of redesigns on the fly. But scheme number, let's go this way. Hopefully you can hear me. Scheme number 1 was in 4th place with 146 votes. That was 17% of the 880. Scheme 3, there we go, 204 votes with 23%. Scheme 2 was 226 votes, 26%, and our winner was scheme number 4 with 304 votes, 35%. So it won by quite a large margin of 100 votes. So there's your winner, number 4. Okay, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Lydia. You want to grab your chart?
Thank you.
Okay, so first on our agenda tonight is a hearing for a site plan approval and special permit for Tree Works manufacturing marijuana manufacturing concern. As we do with each of our public hearings, I'm just going to read the ground rules and then we'll get right into it. After I've read the meeting notice and officially entered it into the record, we will ask the applicant or their representative to come up and describe the project to the audience and to those watching on television. And if they have any specific requests for waivers, for example, from the special permit process, to do so regarding the project at that time. We'll then entertain any comments from supporters of the project that may be here tonight. And if you have any questions of the project or of the project representatives, they're to be made through the chair, and I will then engage the applicant as required. We'll then entertain any comments from opponents of the project, and again, if there's any specific questions to be asked, those will be made through the chair, and we'll engage the applicant. The board will then have an opportunity to ask any questions of the applicant or of any supporters or opponents as necessary. We'll then, if we feel we are at a point, we can close the public hearing, and then the board will deliberate on the project, during which time, again, we can ask the applicant, supporters, or opponents any questions, and then upon completion of those deliberations, the chair will seek a motion to either approve the project with or without conditions, to reject the project, or to continue the hearing to a future date with instructions to the applicant if it's felt like we need more opportunity for hearing and discussion on the particular project. So with that, I will read into the record the notice of a special permit with site plan approval. Planning Board of the Town of Hatfield will hold a public hearing on November 7, 2018 at 6:30 in Hatfield Memorial Town Hall. The applicant, Treeworks of Massachusetts LLC, is seeking a special permit with site plan approval from the Planning Board pursuant to Section 5.4 of the Town of Hatfield zoning bylaw at 3 West Street, owned by John and Lori Zapka of Williamsburg, Massachusetts, Assessors Map 224, Lot 31. Zone business for the purpose of operating a cannabis manufacturing facility to produce Treeworks branded cannabis products to sell wholesale to dispensaries and retail outlets throughout the Commonwealth in accordance with Section 3.0 use regulations and subsection 5.29 marijuana product manufacturer section of our bylaw. The complete application was available for inspection during regular business hours at the office of the town clerk, 59 Main Street, Hatfield, Massachusetts. So with that, I will ask a representative or representatives of Treeworks to come forward, and if they would introduce themselves to the assembled group and also then make a presentation on their project. If you have anything that you'd like to put on the easel, feel free to do so. I know you've provided us with material. So is that what we have here?
That would be this right here.
Okay, so that's
you have that as well.
Yeah, so actually, if you have, maybe you could hand those out for people to just sort of pass around, and if you would, for the audience.
We probably do. We can just share it, that way you don't have to open all yours up.
Do you have one that's on a hard enough surface that you could put on the easel just to speak to so the folks that are watching on television, or maybe you could hear, why don't you take mine and lay that across up there, and then that way you can speak to that and I can look on one of these. Yeah, maybe Milo can hold it for you there. Good, okay.
Well, thanks, Bob, for having us. Am I shy speaking here?
Yeah, you can turn that around so you can speak to the camera.
Sure.
That'll be fine.
Thanks for having us. My name is McKay Freeland, and I'm joined with my partners Milo Childs Campolo and Tim Kane. And we've been here before, and as kind of described by Bob briefly, we'd like to be a product manufacturer here in Hatfield, Massachusetts, sort of a business-to-business wholesale operation, making various kind of health cannabis products to distribute to dispensaries within the state. And we'd like to have our operation at the previous space occupied by Zapka's Garden Center, which is at 3 West Street in Hatfield on the other side of 91. And that's kind of a brief description of our business, and we're here to seek approval of our project.
Actually, before we entertain questions or comments from supporters of the project and move forward with the hearing, can you just update all of us on your process with and what you've done in terms of community meeting, your application to the Cannabis Control Commission, just where you are in the process?
Yeah, so we held our community outreach meeting August 29th, I believe, at the Smith Academy School, and we had maybe about 15 people attended. We responded to a lot of questions. Some people were able to voice their concerns about our operation, and we had some good dialogue there. And as far as our application to the state goes, we're just waiting on one more piece in order to submit our full, complete application to the state, which is our host community agreement, which we're going to negotiate with the Board of Selectmen here in Hatfield, but we cannot do that until we've first received our special permit with site plan approval from the town. That's what this means for us.
And so why don't you just walk folks through your site plan? And where your business is going to be, where people, maybe orient people as to the existing structure and where we are on West Street? I think all of us on the board know where it is, but some of the folks in the audience may not.
Sure. So this map here, this is 5 and 10. 91 is located right here, approximately. This would be, there's a Danco Modern, Go-Kart Place, and a Subway, and we're just directly across the street from that. This building's split into two separate main areas, one of which is Brewing Grounds Cafe on the side closest to 5 and 10, and we are looking to occupy the space in the back of the building here. We're not really trying to add any additional, other than a proposed dumpster location on this side of the building. We're not really modifying the property at all. We've laid out parking spots within the area and handicap parking. We're going to add some exterior motion lighting and some cameras, just that's required with the state security plan. But other than that, the building itself isn't really going to change. We've considered down the road ideas of potentially gates for traffic and maybe some rocks just to prevent anyone from driving through the building if that was ever a possibility. But that's not included right now in this plan. That's not something we're initially doing. Other than that, it's really pretty straightforward. The property is going to stay just about the same, and for those who drive by that maybe daily, you're not really going to notice any difference in the property other than maybe a few more cars parked there just from employees. And that's really it. It's pretty straightforward in terms of modifications to the property. So.
So this building immediately to the south, that's the Smithsonian Chowder House,
Yep.
right?
Yeah,
Okay,
House right
so
here.
people would know. All right. So are there any specific waivers that you are asking for regarding the special permit?
Yes, so Kay has a copy of that for you.
Okay, so can you go through those then too?
Okay, so you want me to go through them one at a time?
Yes, please.
Okay, so under the Hatfield zoning bylaws 5.33 special permit applications, one that we are proposing, or we have a waiver written out for, is number 5, which is existing and proposed topography at a 2-foot contour interval. The location of wetlands, streams, water bodies, drainage swales, areas subject to flooding, and base flood elevations and unique natural land features. Do you want me to go over why we're applying
Yes,
for
please,
this? Okay.
so that everyone can hear and then be part of the comments or questions that come up.
Sure, so TreeWorks requests a waiver from the special permit application requirements set forth in 5.33A5 because they are not applicable to TreeWorks' planned use for the site. Our proposal is a reuse and redevelopment project in which a portion of the interior of an existing building located on the property will be renovated for product manufacturing operations. We're not proposing any changes to the topography or impervious areas on the existing site. And yeah, no new construction is currently contemplated and no significant changes to the physical environment, surface water and subsurface conditions, circulation systems, or support systems will be required at the time. I can read them all fully through if you'd like me to.
Well, if you could summarize each of
Yeah,
the
I
ones.
can try to summarize them all, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. The next waiver we're applying for is number 8, which is the location and description of all proposed septic systems, percolation tests, when necessary, water supply, storm drainage systems, including existing and proposed drain lines, culverts, drainage swales, catch basins, utilities, hydrants, manholes, and lighting fixtures. And similar to the last one, we're requesting a waiver for this because we're not proposing any changes to the septic systems or storm drainage systems. We're going to use the infrastructure that's already currently exists at the location. Let's see. Moving forward is number 9, drainage calculations and sub-drainage along with soil logs. So similarly, not planning on making alterations there. Number 14, elevation plans at a scale of 1/4 inch for every foot for all exterior facades of the proposed structures and or existing facades, plus additions showing design features and indicating the type and color of materials to be used. Yeah, again, it's not in line with our proposed use of the site. Our proposal is a reuse and redevelopment project of modifying the interior of the existing site, so not really applicable. Number 15, plans for clearing, stockpiling, or removal of topsoil on the site, including whether such topsoil is to be permanently removed from the site. And we have no plans currently of removing any topsoil on the site. And then in 5.4.4 required contents of site plans for approval, we're asking for a waiver on C3, which is the plan shall describe estimated daily and peak hour vehicle trips to be generated by the site and traffic flow patterns for vehicles and pedestrians showing adequate access to and from the site and adequate circulation within the site.
Actually, if you could read that one in detail, I
Sure.
think that would be helpful.
So in compliance with 5.7.2, the building which TreeWorks will use for manufacture, assembly, processing, or packaging will have one space for each employee on the largest shift. TreeWorks will have fewer than 18 employees working at the facility at any given time and will not be using the facility to serve retail customers. TreeWorks anticipates pickups and/or deliveries to be made at the site 1 to 2 times daily, with the pickup and/or delivery vehicles staying for no more than 1 hour at a time. In addition, TreeWorks anticipates occasional visits will be made to the site by those providing services to TreeWorks facility. TreeWorks portion of the building's parking area currently has 9 parking spaces. The total number of spaces in the building's parking area is 18, and this parking area can be expanded if needed. And just going back to a previous point on that, when it says we will have fewer than 18 employees, and I know I just mentioned that we'll have 9 parking spots for our side, but there is improved ground to pay for more parking spaces in the future, at which point we would come back to the planning board and present that. And also, we are highly considering doing multiple shifts, so we won't have any issue of having overflow of parking. And TreeWorks does not anticipate any increased burden on the site beyond that of Zapka's Garden Center's previous use of the property as a retail facility. The facility will not be open to the public and will represent an overall decrease in traffic from the previous retail use. So basically 9 cars coming in once a day, leaving once a day, maybe 1 delivery. And in the past, with the garden center, you'd have a bunch of customers coming in all the time and leaving, so it'd be an overall decrease. And then number 4, a detailed traffic impact statement is required in each case where a proposed new building, use, or project will contain more than 10,000 square feet or will include one of the following uses which generates high volumes of trips. And those include automobile service station, fast food or drive-in restaurant, convenience store, bank, or post office. Yeah, and we don't fall under any of those categories. That's why we're requesting a waiver for that last one.
Okay. Do you have anything else that you want to add during this presentation portion of the hearing?
Is there anything that we can say that would be helpful for the planning board?
Well, I think we'll open it up then, and
Sure.
then there'll be questions
Sure.
from either the audience or from ourselves. So we will open it up to any supporters of the project that are here that would like to comment on the project or state their support of the project. And if you would, come up to the microphone and state your name and address in town would be terrific. So. Actually, you can spin that mic around and just face, yeah, that's fine. Go ahead.
Is this what you wanted
Yeah,
me to
that's
do?
fine, that's fine. All right.
My name's Allison Childs. I live at 47 Old Stage Road. And I just wanted to say that I appreciate that Hatfield has the possibility to be part of the growing kind of new cannabis industry. And I know that it has the potential to help a lot of people medically. And I just, I'm excited to host this, new project. So I support you wholeheartedly.
Anyone else want to make a comment? Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, I'll now open up the floor to any opponents of the project, and if they have any specific questions of the applicant, to address them to the board, and we'll entertain, we'll engage the applicant as necessary. So does anyone want to make a comment in opposition or concern about the project as proposed? Sure, come on up.
I guess it's more of a concern than an
Can you
opposition.
state your name and?
I'm sorry.
and
Mike
location?
Sullivan, 171 Linseed Road in West Hatfield. I guess it's more of a concern. I am not aware of another city or town that doesn't have a full-time police department, highly trained, police academy trained, et cetera. I'm unaware of any place that they're trying to do this where there's basically a part-time police department. So for a portion of the day, there is not going to be any kind of coverage. And I know that the security plans call for securing the product at night, and, you know, that you've got cameras and so forth, but the opportunity is high, given the location of this facility and its access, far too easy to 91 for people that are doing nefarious things. And if you could just speak to some of the maybe the safeguards that you're going to try and put into place to try to put people at ease, because currently that's my, like, if Amherst is going to have one, East Hampton's going to have one, et cetera, but these are all large places, so if something goes wrong, they're going to have people there quickly. That won't be the case here unless they got people at the barracks that are close by or whatever, but then you're counting on the state police who've got area patrols out all over in 91, and they may not have bodies to respond to the thing.
Yeah, so can you all respond to that? Yeah, please.
Sure. So certainly something we've thought about. We had the opportunity to meet with the police chief here in town 2 weeks ago. I found that to be a productive meeting, and that was a concern he had voiced as well. We are fortunate to be right down the road from the state police, and 91, this particular stretch of 91, especially up through Deerfield and south through Northampton, one of the heavier patrolled sections of state highway from state police. So when the Hatfield Town Police Department closes, calls are directed to the state police, and that's definitely something that we're going to work with and have that available. Also, in terms of just general security, we're following every security requirement that's put forward by the state. And one addition the chief of police here in Hatfield had suggested that we make is have a button that we can press that can kind of directly go to state police if any issue arises while there's employees on site. And there's always going to be, in any business, the opportunity for someone to come and when people aren't there and mess with your facility. And at that point, you hope that there's police officers in the general area, and in this case, state police when Hatfield's not on. So, and I'll certainly let anyone else.
Have you spoken to the state police yet about them wanting to take on responsibility of doing this? Command or whoever?
No, sir, we haven't. Yeah, no, we have.
May I ask a question, though, of you, Mr. Sullivan? So, you raise important concerns. Are you concerned about what the safety could be for residents in Hatfield, or are you being altruistic and concerned about these guys losing their product?
I'm more concerned with them, one, probably losing the product.
Right.
You can replace the product, grow more.
Right.
But if somebody with ill will and bad intent, they walked into a bank, convenience store, there's a whole stretch of those
Right.
businesses that have been broken into. But somebody coming in during hours to try to, do something, there's a safety issue there for the employees as well.
Right.
And I realize you're gonna have hardened entrances, et cetera, and some of this is a requirement within the scope of the Cannabis Control Commission as well, as far as how you're getting in and out of the building, but they're wrestling with this now down in Worcester as to how they're gonna get the shipments and, the product process from one spot to another, and how that plan's gonna evolve, and I think it's gonna be one of the more complicated components of things when it's all said and done.
So to that, can you speak to some of the requirements that the Cannabis Control Commission requires in terms of safety and security that any of these establishments with a license is going to have to adhere to.
So just want you guys to have just a copy of this here.
So
Okay.
to go over a few of the requirements that exist. We're going to have a full-time camera system that's going to be monitoring 24/7 motion sensor cameras. We're going to have limited access areas. We're considering building in a sally port entrance. So essentially, two doors. One door has to close behind before you can get in through the next door. Like McKay had mentioned, having a panic button on site, that was the direct suggestion of the Hatfield Chief of Police, so we're gonna go with that. I believe he said that the Hatfield Police Station is that correct? Something? So at that point in time, none of our employees are gonna be on site working. We're not gonna be running any shifts, obviously, in the middle of the night. So at that point, the calls would be taken by the state police station down the road. We do need to still talk with them and make sure that we can work out that relationship with them. That was by his suggestion. So a few of the other requirements, we have not only one monitoring system, but we actually are going to install a backup monitoring system that's required by the CCC, that you have two separate companies. We actually have two local companies that we're currently working with that are able to set up both the primary and then the backup monitoring system as well. There are some other big ones I'm missing, or?
Sure. I just wanted to just add, John just reminds me that the Hatfield Police Chief did offer to introduce us kind of to the people that we need to talk to, the state police. So we don't have that set up, but that's obviously something that we're going to have to set up, and he's offered to kind of make that introduction. This is something that I forgot to say last time to add to that. But for us, just something for everyone to consider is, we're putting our life into this business, and everything that's on that side of that our property is going to belong to us. So I can say it's really in our best interest to protect that as much as possible. If we're robbed, we lose everything. We don't just get that back. So we're going to go above and beyond, just not only to meet the requirements, but go above and beyond to protect our assets, and also make sure that we don't have a harvesting crime on our property. So I definitely mean that when I say it. So.
And also, there's concern because cannabis is going to be primarily a cash business initially until it becomes federally legal, and so we're not going to be keeping large quantities of cash on site at any point in time. We're going to have an off-site safe where that's kept, so we're not going to really have anything of too much value on site for people to steal. They still may see us as a target being a cannabis company, but I don't think we'll have the appeal of either a retail or a cultivation operation would have.
So the other thing I would note is that any additional burden to the part-time police force here in Hatfield is taken into consideration, or will be taken, or should be taken into consideration in the negotiation of the host agreement that the Tree Works folks would be working out with the Board of Selectmen in terms of offsetting some of that. I mean, that's part of the reason for the host agreement, is to address any additional burdens that are as a result of the establishment located in the community to things like the police force or Board of Health or whatever. So those are all part of that conversation that I know you'll be having with the Board of Selectmen. Others would like to make a comment. Yes.
James Sullivan, 18 Plantation Road in Hatfield, Mass. I just had a question because you just mentioned, you talked about the security piece of it, and talking about Sally Port entrance, secured to the rear, secured to the front. That's fantastic. I'm curious though, because you're asking for a waiver under 5.33A5 and then the myriad beyond that, and not to get into the septic issues and the waterfront and change, but specifically to the changes of the actual physical site. If you're going to add a Sally Port to it, it's going to change the physical site location at some level. So there's going to be some kind of, you're asking for a waiver, but then you're saying you're going to need to amend the security change that's required by within Chapter 90, Section G. And I'm just curious, if you're asking for that waiver and you know that the security is it that it seems like I don't know. Yeah. I hesitate to use the word disingenuous, but it seems counterintuitive to what you're requesting for a waiver. If you could speak to that, maybe.
Sure. So I will point out that the back of the property does have a garage door currently. So there would be no existing change to the back side of that property. There's a garage door, and the Sally Port would be in the interior of the building. Furthermore, Sallyport's something we're considering. I think that right now we're in a place where this industry hasn't come off the ground yet. And there is a lot of unknowns, quite frankly. And I really just want to reiterate the fact that we're going to do everything we can to make this as secure as possible and to protect our employees. And we're going to be working owners. So, we're not putting some person at minimum wage, in charge of this operation to just be put out there and their life or whatever it might be at risk. I mean, I myself, Tim, Milo, we're going to be handling this and on site. So we're certainly definitely concerned with our own safety. So does that answer your question?
I think so, yeah, to relative to the changing of the landscape.
Yeah, I don't believe that there's any requirement that we have a Sally Port.
Right.
So that was just a sort
Yeah, I
of,
was just mentioning, because you spoke to it, and I was
Yeah.
curious about changes to the property. So.
yeah, it's something that we've talked about and that we would bring back to the planning board if that were something we wanted to do.
Anyone else? Okay, so I'm assuming then that we've heard from any and all supporters or opponents of this proposal? Okay, so the board, questions that you may have of the applicants. Paul?
I have a question. I think I heard you say that you were, because of the parking situation, you would probably not have any more than 7 cars there per shift, and you might run 3 shifts. And then you say, well, there's not going to be anybody there at night.
So two shifts.
2 shifts, all right, okay.
During the hours of 12 to, I can't imagine us having anyone on site from the hours of 12 p.m. or 12 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Okay, but you said 2, I mistook you, okay.
I had a question about, there's an existing well, they're using well water there now, and that's what you're going to use?
Yep. I just clarified this earlier before our meeting with the Zapkas about just pertaining to how much water the septic system can process at 300 gallons. The other tenant currently using roughly about 120 gallons of that, and that's where we get the 180. There is a typo on that, it says monthly. It's supposed to be per day. I just do want to point that out.
Okay. There's an existing business in the front of that building. Are they also using that same septic system?
Yes.
Yes, we shared.
Yeah, and like roughly 120 gallons roughly per day.
So it's a septic system. You're not tied into the town sewer there. It's an on-site septic?
We are not. There's a stub on the sewer that could be tied into if we determine that our water needs are more than that going forwards, but after running the numbers and what we think we're going to use with our initial operation, we're confident that.
So have you received any kind of documentation from the Board of Health that how you want to use the property fits the size and the condition of the current septic system?
We don't currently have it now.
I think probably should have the Board of Health confirm that what you are proposing and the volume that you're considering is going to be adequate for the needs of that particular septic system. Just like, we have Title V review when someone sells their house, to make sure that the septic system is up to snuff, up to code if it had been built at a previous time, and also if like when you put an addition on a house that adds bedrooms, you have to have the septic
Title
system.
V, yeah.
Title V. So I think that would be important because while you're not, as you indicated, increasing the retail traffic volume going in and out, for everything that building has ever been used for in the past, my guess is that you're going to have the most number of employees there than certainly the Zapkas at their garden center, and probably even Century Kitchens prior to that, in terms of having anywhere from.
Well, plus you got the restaurant in the front end.
Right.
So, I mean,
Right.
depending on how many people are there and how much water they process, is it a 15,000 gallon, 1,500 gallon tank, or do you know, or?
Capable of, I'm not sure the size of the tank. capable of 300 gallons a day is the max use.
It might be a good idea to put that in your quiver, though, to go to the Board of Health and find out what's going on, you know? It may be, before you get this to present everybody and get all your stuff together, it may be a good idea to have that in your quiver and say, yes, this is gonna work. And if it doesn't work, we've got a stub out front and we will connect, you know?
Totally, and
Yeah,
I
I
just
mean,
want to remind you guys that also, post us getting our host community agreement, we're gonna have to submit our application to the state, and we can't really start our build out on the site until we're not gonna start any build out on the site until we receive our preliminary license, which that could be potentially a 3-month period, so we'd have plenty of time to go before the Board of the Health, make that decision, what makes the most sense, and we have a good backup option if it appears that we don't,
You get the perfect
we're not gonna,
backup.
yeah, we have the perfect backup option if it appears that that's not gonna be, up to snuff for what we're gonna need, so we'll definitely speak to the Board of Health to make that happen.
Michael?
My question would just be again about the traffic. You're indicating that, and I'm kind of looking at time periods, because during your initial startup phase, it's going to be one thing, and then once you're fully into production with 2 shifts, is going to be another thing. So do you anticipate more traffic when you're in that once you get into the second shift and you're more in a growth phase than when you're in the startup phase?
Yeah, I mean, we're being a business-to-business wholesaler. We have no retail customers coming on site. So again, it's just as most businesses and employees come and they go. And, you know, it's convenient to have a cafe and also the Smithsonian Chowder House next door. So lunch, I can imagine people have kind of food on site as well, or can walk across the street. So that would probably even further limit the traffic for
No,
people going to break.
no,
and
that's,
whatnot, so.
my question is more specific into, as far as when you're in your startup phase and in just running one shift, I'm assuming you're not gonna run 2 shifts right from the get-go. So when you're running one shift and you're making product, those pickups are gonna be less and deliveries than when you are in a second shift and you're producing more product and you want to get it out of that site faster.
Sure, yeah, we don't anticipate having any increase in traffic necessarily as business picks up. I don't think that off the bat our van's going to be fully loaded with cash or money or whatever it might be, product right off the bat. You know, the vehicle that we're planning on using for transportation, it should be, you know, plenty of space with increased capacity at the site. So I would anticipate any more traffic than we've laid out.
So as far as product going out, you guys are going to be delivering it to whoever is purchasing it from you?
A combination of both. We're certainly considering having our own vehicle under the license we're applying for. We can distribute our own product with a van, and other licensed operators also have that ability to pick up and deliver. So in between, probably a combination of both. Still without a license, no contracts in place with other vendors. So it's kind of, along with a lot of other questions, there's some unknowns certainly, and I don't pretend to know all the answers, but I would say a combination of both, and I wouldn't anticipate any increased traffic in the foreseeable future.
Well, certainly we have a situation here where we have I mean, it's a business, and it's a business zone, it's on a state highway. If we're going to have any area in town that's going to see increased traffic from a business, this would be the right place
Yeah.
for it to happen. Can you speak a little bit more to the parking, just to make sure that we're comfortable with the amount of parking that you're suggesting is on site that'll be used by you, as well as by your neighbor at Brewing Grounds? And so on your map, it's a little, you can see the parking lines are faint, but maybe you can just speak to the number, show maybe on here where the number of parking spaces are and how that all plays out on your parcel.
So currently there's 18 designated parking spaces on the site. A few here, this whole back row, a few against the front of the building, and then this could be additional parking. Back here, this is currently where the greenhouse is located for or right between the greenhouse kind of. It was not used as a parking area previously for the Zackus Garden Center, but it could be used for us as a parking area. Initially, our plan
I
is
mean,
to
taking
have,
down the greenhouse and then the area underneath it would then be.
it's kind of the area between it, actually. It's like
Okay.
there's a paved area between it.
Or improved ground.
Yeah, and so currently there's 18 spots. Our plan is to start with 3 full-time employees, and then ourselves as well, and then ramp up from there, going as much as 18 full-time employees by the 3rd year of operation. So at that point, if we started running a second shift, we would be able to work the parking between the 2 shifts.
So 9 in each shift.
Yeah.
So 18 total employees, but not 18 parking spots needed.
Yes.
Correct.
So you would then use 9, you'd probably have a couple people that are coming in, business manager, finance person, somebody who may be stopping in to have a meeting with you, so you could have
10 or 12.
10 or 12, and leaving about 6 or so for the brewing grounds, which is I go by there almost every day, and I see they're sort of an in and out kind of business. I mean, I don't know how much sit-down business they have, but
as time develops too, we're definitely open to having a shared agreement where it can be half and half, and like I said, there is improved ground that we could potentially create more spots as well if that was deemed necessary. But I don't foresee it being a problem, especially initially. So.
Are either of the Zapkas here?
Yes.
Can you speak to the agreement that you have now with Brewing Grounds and, how you anticipate, sharing this space? Because you're going to be leasing it to both parties, I'm assuming, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I believe Mr. Brown, the Brewing Grounds lease, he's entitled to half the parking spaces on the property existing. And as Tree Works explained, with the removal of the greenhouse, which has been sold, the whole space under it and between the buildings was never considered as parking, but is available parking. So if it were ever to bump into John's business and be an impediment, we're more than willing to pave the back area to accommodate additional parking spaces where they had mentioned between the building and the greenhouse is paved, but there's also where the greenhouse was that we could potentially add parking spaces.
So you would be taking down that tree and then paving in there, which would require then you coming back in for some, we would just be.
Which tree?
Is that?
I almost think this is a tree. I don't know why.
There's no
Oh,
trees back
is
there.
there a tree? Oh, that's.
It was an outdated photo.
Okay,
Don't do that.
yeah, okay,
It's
all
not
right.
quite the shape of the greenhouse.
Okay. Okay, so to your satisfaction then, and to your other tenants' satisfaction, you feel like the arrangement you would have here that takes care of their Brewing Grounds needs as well as Tree Works needs?
Absolutely, our goal is to accommodate both businesses.
Mhm.
And if Tree Works needs more parking, we're absolutely in a position to add more parking with their expansion without impeding on Brewing Grounds' parking at all.
If I may put, John, Brewing Grounds, do you have any opinion on this project or anything to add? You're going to be their immediate neighbor.
Yeah, I have a lot of trust in John and Lori, to be honest with you. So I take their word for what it is. I feel like if I tell them that they're taking up parking spaces and I need some space, I think they'll tell them to try to squeeze in the back or they'll pave it as soon as they can. The one concern I do have, which I already voiced to John and Lori, would be the septic tank situation. So the 120 gallons is, I don't know, the 120 gallons and them saying 180 to me is a guess from them, not so much from me. I mean, I could run some numbers if you guys want real numbers on what I'm doing for water. That would be my only true concern, is that septic tank situation. Again, I trust John and Lori that if it needs to be connected through the town, I feel like they'll do that. Excuse me, but at the same time, I'm afraid of a time zone where if it is an issue, what am I gonna do, during that time? I mean, that would be
So,
my only concern with the project.
so I have to express and acknowledge my ignorance on this subject. I know how it works with a residential unit, but with a commercial unit, is there anyone from the Board of Health in the room? Ashley Eaton from Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. Can I put, no one sells, you don't even think about selling a house in Massachusetts these days without getting a Title V review. And oftentimes it ends up, you get your $20,000 in the hole before you even put the house on the market because you have to update your septic system. We don't require the same thing for a change in use in a commercial establishment?
This is where I tell you that I'm the housing planner, so I don't know either.
Well, I think we would want to definitely, so you were a realtor, but
If there was a transfer of the property, there would be a Title V, whether it was commercial or residential or
Right.
whatever. In this case, Mr. Zapka's leasing the property to two separate entities, okay? I would be, if we do pass this thing tonight, I would want a statement in there that those guys will find out what's going on with the amount of water they're gonna use, and is it gonna be able to take it? And if not, I'd like to have you have an agreement with the brewing grounds guy, or Mr. Zapka, or whoever's gonna pick up the tab, to hook it up, okay, to the Hatfield? Because there's no sense of pumping a ton of water in here where it's already wet. Let's face it, it's a wet piece of land. And you go pumping a ton of water in there, you just got a problem on top of a problem, then the brewing guy backs up, and then you guy backs up and say, hey, what's happened? You gotta get some answers here, for me anyway.
And you got a stub there.
I didn't come forward before as a supporter because I live in New York and I didn't think you'd care. My name is John Marks. I am Tim's uncle, and I've been acting as an advisor to them, helped them with the business plan and a few other things. And John and I were just talking about the lease. There is actually language in the lease about the responsibility of Tree Works to pay for the hookup if it's necessary. I just confirmed that that's basically the language that we have in our lease. So just wanted to let you know that in terms of who's paying for it, it would be Tree Works that we agreed to
Most
in our
importantly,
lease.
I'd like to know what's going on before
Right.
we get into it.
We're okay with that
Yeah.
being a stipulation in the
Okay, all right.
special permit
Okay, all right.
as well, to
Okay.
make sure that we get the okay by the Board of Health.
All right.
any other questions?
Yeah,
of the
I have,
board? Oh, go ahead, Paul.
does this process require any special electrical, mechanical, heating, air conditioning, filtering, air filtering, modifications to the building in terms of, marijuana stinks, okay? And it does have a definite smell. So they're going to be significant, that's the contractor's problem, but does it require a great deal of this kind of modifications to the building without interfering into the other part of the business, the other tenant that's in that same building? Is the
I
question
think
that
the
I have.
most modification that we would do would be potentially something coming out of the side of the building, sort of just a ventilation system with an output up above the building. So no serious changes, but we talked to a few experts that said other businesses have done similar things, whereas they were using a hood within the facility to capture some of that smell, and then, sort of shooting it out and out the side of the building and then up above the building to, the legal height above the building.
And I will say that odor is really the major issue with a grow operation when you have live plants that, quite frankly, stink. When we're manufacturing distillate itself has no smell. The product, it's a tasteless, smellless, viscous cannabis oil that we're infusing into products. And so that being on site doesn't have a smell. There's obviously going to be raw cannabis that's stored in the building, but that's going to be securely stored. It's also going to be in food saved, vac sealed bags. That's not going to be. It's not an issue really with product manufacturing. We work with a consultant out of Colorado, Sweet Mary Jane's. His name's Thomas Buswell. He's their general manager. They have an operation that is within a building with many other businesses, and smell has never been an issue for them. And that was a concern of ours. We have Bruins grounds next door. We have neighbors, but we've done our research. We're working with people who are in the business and been in the business for 10 years in Colorado, and that's not an issue. Furthermore, we asked our attorneys to help us to put together an odor mitigation plan based on some of the other clients that they work with, and that's what I've just given you right now. So we don't anticipate the smell being a major issue, really.
The CCC application also has stipulations on odor control as well, doesn't it? The Cannabis Control Commission's application process and their license to you all?
Yes. Yeah, so I mean, as under building controls, adequate HVAC and air exchange filtration systems. So, we're going to do everything we need to do to satisfy what the CCC requests. We can't go into business until we have a final walkthrough from the CCC. So they give us a preliminary license, and then we have 90 days to get it together, and then they come back essentially. And if it's not up to par, then we can't open. So
you've mentioned oils and edibles. So you are not actually going to be producing joints that are then sold as out in Colorado. I mean, you can buy individual joints that are in a little
Pre-rolls.
Yeah.
So pre-rolls are typically the dispensaries, the retail operations. They are purchasing or growing their own, and they in-house in the retail operation tend to make the pre-rolls. We can't just make a pre-roll. We have to modify it somehow. So it has to have some type of wax or oil within it. We've talked about that as a product. Right now, it's not on our business plan. We have products we're making, and we have future products like what's the sky's the limit type thing. We've considered that, but currently have no plans to make.
So those pre-rolls are typically made by the retail as
Yeah.
opposed to by a product manufacturer and then sold to
Yeah,
the
as
retailer.
pot's handled, pieces break off into shake. The shakes, then it's like you can throw it away or you can use it for something and, make a pre-roll and just kind of capture every part so you're utilizing every piece of the plant. I don't want to stand here and say that that's something we'll never consider. We can't just make a plain pre-roll. It has to be modified. We've talked about it, but it's not in our business plan. It's not our initial products. And that's kind of where we're at for that. So we're going to be working with distillate and infusing that into foods and distillate pen cartridges. So.
The other thing I think would be, since this is our first foray into this, and probably for a lot of folks in town who didn't attend any of the hearings that we had on the bylaw or town meeting or had a chance to read through the bylaw, I just want to remind the residents in town and also you all that some of the other stipulations that we have in our bylaw is that first of all marijuana establishment signage shall conform to our bylaws, section 5.9, which is basically on size and illumination, things of that sort. But also, no signage, displays, or artwork at an marijuana establishment shall state, depict, or include the words marijuana or cannabis or any marijuana plants, products, or paraphernalia in the signage. So out on Route 5 and 10. So the Zapka garden sign isn't going to now have like a nice big bud on it. It's going to, marijuana plants, products, and paraphernalia shall not be visible from the outside of the building in which the establishment is located. No outside storage is permitted. Sounds like you wouldn't want that anyway. And then this would not be the case for you because you're not a retail establishment, but no public events shall take place at the establishment. And the special permit, if it is offered and is approved, is limited to the current applicant and provide that the permit shall lapse if that applicant ceases operating the licensed marijuana establishment or if the applicant's license with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts through the Cannabis Control Commission is expired or terminated. So I think you're fully aware of all of those, and your project, presumably from what you've outlined today and in your submission, is not, we don't have any issues with anything I just said, correct?
Correct. We want to have a discrete facility that, I'll remind everyone, will look really, other than some very small lighting and security cameras, no different than the property looks right now. So you'll drive by. Our goal is to not even be able to tell that there's a cannabis company there. So it's...
Are there any other questions on the part of the board?
I'm not.
Michael?
No, I'm set.
Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing, at which time now we can deliberate amongst ourselves if we wish, and if there's any questions that we further have that may come up, but
Okay. I would like to entertain, well, one of the, we can talk about this, but a stipulation that we do a review from the time that once they, let's say if this passes, they apply to the Cannabis Control Commission, they receive a license. I would like to recommend that we do a review in 1 year from the time they get their license. Can we, we issued a similar permit to somebody that for an entertainment license one time. And we requested, there was some concern about noise and smells and more not so much smells, but more noise things. And we did a review in 1 year, and they came back to us. Is that something that our board would like to consider? Since this is our first go-around, kind of a how goes it type of thing. How things are going. There's, not a lot of security issues. There's not, I don't know, just a whole host of things that could happen.
Well, I think it's always good for us to have dialogue, particularly with commercial businesses in town, but we could add that as a stipulation if that is part of a motion. I've already heard that we want to nail down the septic
Definitely.
system.
Well, it's for your own good. I mean, I don't think it's something that we're pinning on you for, stopping you from doing anything. I think it's for your own good. Let's get it out in the open. If it's going to go, let's go with it right up front. Don't deal with it.
Understood.
And it will help the brewing ground guy for sure.
Well, can I get a motion then on the Tree Works request application for a site plan review, special permit with site plan review, contingent on two items. One, that they present to the board before initiating their business a report on the condition of the septic system and the water use and whether or not that will meet the requirements of the both establishments. The septic system will meet the requirements of both establishments with some confirmation from the Board of Health. And if not, what the plan is to remediate that. And that 1 year from your receipt of your CCC license, that we arrange for a meeting with you all to just sort of see how everything is going. And at that point, you might be talking about additional parking lots, spaces anyway, so we would need to meet with you at that point. So the motion would be to approve the site plan review, special permit with site plan review with the two conditions regarding the septic system, and then a review meeting a year from receipt of their license from CCC.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Hey, Michael. It's been seconded. Any other further discussion by the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it.
Brave new world.
Don't make us hope we didn't do it.
You're welcome. Good luck.
Okay. Good luck. Appreciate it. Yep, take care. Yep. All right.
Good luck.
Yep.
Thank you, good to meet you, sir.
Good luck.
All right. Good luck.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Ashley, you're on, next on the agenda, yes.
Am I gonna throw your whole system up?
Are you gonna sit there?
Yeah.
Take your audio up there.
Will you be able to hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so we are here to talk about accessory dwelling unit bylaw. Some of you were at the meeting in September where I got a lot of feedback on what to put into this draft. So I think we'll just go through it. I sent a copy to you earlier this week.
Yep.
I have some paper copies. them.
This is,
We all-
this is the same that we got? The
Yes,
same, no
yes, has
changes.
not changed at all. And then the other thing that I will say is, in the email that you all received, I pulled the size of the structures in town.
Yes, you sent that in an email.
So
Yeah,
there was some concern about making some of those size decisions when we didn't have a sense of what
Right.
the size of buildings in the town were. And so I think you can see most of them are bigger than that 900 square foot, which was the murky area.
right.
This is existing right now.
Yes, yep, based on the assessor's data. So pretty straightforward, going through the purpose and number of things, providing older homeowners with a means of staying in their homes, with rental income, adding inexpensive rental units to the housing stock to meet the need of smaller households, both old and young, making units available to low and moderate income families, and we look at that as it's a rental unit that's smaller in size, so they're typically a little more affordable. Protecting the stability and property values and the residential character of your neighborhoods, so you're not putting in, some big multifamily units, but really adding units in your existing stock. And then legalizing some of the conversions that might have already happened, so we've put a little safety in on to how people can go through the process to maybe legalize those things that they've already done, which will allow the town to make sure that those were actually done to the building code. Got some definitions there that are great to have.
I had a question on one of the definitions. So we
Yep.
had decided that we were not going to allow accessory apartments as a detached unit.
Yep.
So, but we have a definition for that. And so I just wanted to make sure that we are clear. I don't want an attorney to suggest that, well, you have the definition, so therefore
It might be
it
allowed.
might suggest that you're allowing it. And so I wondered why we would have that, or maybe somewhere else in the ordinance it's clear that detached units are not allowed.
It would probably be better to just take it out, because I think we talk more about like what is actually allowed. So that's
Right.
an easy, to scratch that. So section 1.3, accessory apartments that are contained within the existing structure of the primary dwelling unit shall be allowed by right in all districts. So if they're staying within the existing footprint of the house, they will go through the building inspector. And then the special permit granting authority, which under your regulations is you guys, can authorize a special permit for accessory apartments that are attached to an existing primary dwelling unit, but that require structural modifications or an expansion of the existing primary dwelling unit to fit it. So it's still connected to the unit, but maybe they have to add 200 feet to accommodate an entrance or a little bit of extra room for that bedroom.
So that would go through special permit.
Yes, and would come to you all.
Yeah, Michael, at a previous meeting when we met with Ashley, we had, actually, I think just the three of us might have been at that meeting, but at that meeting, we were instructing her to go in the direction of if it's in an existing unit, that it would be a building inspector discussion, and a special permit would be if it was an expansion.
And then the key criteria for how they're met: the apartment is a complete separate housekeeping unit. Only one apartment is allowed per single-family lot. The lot must meet the single-family house must meet the minimum lot size requirements under the applicable zoning. So if it's going to expand, it still needs to meet those underlying zoning requirements.
So I have a question about, I put a question mark next to that one. So we have a number, so the smallest lot size that currently we have in town is actually, I want to make sure I have this right, is, I believe, 1 acre. And so,
45,000.
yeah, 45,000 square feet
Yeah,
is
45.
the smallest lot.
Yep.
So that includes town center, rural residential, outlying residential. We have a lot of houses on lots that are significantly smaller than an acre, particularly from all the way up and down Elm Street and even on Main Street. So does this mean that one of those homes would not, they'd be ineligible to do an accessory apartment because they would not meet the minimum lot size requirement?
As it's written right now, yes, because they don't comply with the zoning that's in place.
So that's a bit of a challenge, because on the one hand, now I'm thinking of the, if we want to encourage accessory apartments or allow accessory apartments, maybe not necessarily emphasis being on encourage, but allow accessory apartments, it would seem to me that one of the areas in town where we would want people to be able to take advantage of this is where you can walk to,
Yep.
Various services, where you
Walk to the library, walk to the
Yeah,
store, walk to
right.
a function at the
as
school.
opposed to
or-
pushing those all out into more rural outlying areas where you have to get in a car and drive or whatever. Not to say that someone might not want to do that out there, so you don't necessarily say they can't, but by not allowing it in where we don't meet a current minimum lot size, we're significantly reducing the areas in town that could take advantage of this
Yeah,
new
so
bylaw.
we could build some relief into this that says, with the exception of the town center, and then default that to special permit, so they have to come before you, right? Because you want some cap on them not being able to expand lot line to lot line.
No, yeah, so no, there definitely still would need to be meet sort of setback
Yeah.
requirements and maybe even lot coverage requirements.
Okay.
But would this only be for, see, because this is both the allowed by right and the special permit.
Correct.
So, for example, we have a lot of big homes in downtown that could easily be modified to house an accessory apartment without any exterior change or exterior, change in the look of the building. So there'd be no lot line issues, there'd be no lot coverage issues. So I, initially, when I was reading this, I was thinking that this C was specifically for if it was an attached unit, requiring a special permit, where you then really could look at, well, in this case, if you didn't have this minimum lot size requirement, you could really look at setbacks, lot coverage, things of that sort.
Yeah, so what if we modify that to say something, and we can wordsmith this obviously later, but sort of in the instance of an attached accessory dwelling unit that will require an expansion of the primary structure, the expansion must meet setback requirements and lot coverage. And
Yeah.
we could take out the minimum lot size requirement if that's a pretty
Yeah,
big issue.
because I think of my house, for example, it doesn't have the square footage, but I could easily put an accessory apartment in it without having to build anything out or anything like
Mostly
that.
everything
Ours
on
is the
Main
same way.
Street has an accessory
Yeah.
apartment in it.
Exactly,
Or
most
has
of 'em.
3 apartments in it that, we're
Right.
unfamiliar with. So, I mean, it's quite, and if you want to get out to the 60,000,
Because if you restrict it, then everybody's going to be coming, or they're going to be asking for a waiver from
Yeah.
the ZBA, from us.
just asking for more.
Building
you know,
inspector,
more
and that
problems.
sort of thing.
So yeah, we can roll that back to just in the case of an expansion and then just meeting setback and lot coverage.
Did I see a hand going up in the back, Joe?
I had a question, though. You want to be careful that you don't start allowing with a sweep of the hand 2-family houses.
We have further in the bylaw, there are stipulations on the size of those units, so that they're much smaller.
people
over Right.
the years.
Yeah, right.
Neighbors
Yeah. Right.
situations, you want to be very careful.
Right.
So 1D, the owner of the residence shall occupy at least one of the dwelling units. And there are things further in the application code, like they'll have to provide a notarized letter saying that they
Right.
will in fact live in one of the units. The accessory apartment shall be designed so that the appearance of the building remains that of a one-family residence as much as feasibly possible. New entrances located to the side or rear. And then any exterior changes made must conform with the single-family character of the neighborhood. if an addition to the original building is permitted, providing that the addition does not increase the floor area or volume of the original building by more than 50% of the existing total residential space. And this I wanted your thoughts on.
Yeah.
It's sort of F and G. So G is the accessory apartment shall be clearly subordinate part of the single-family dwelling. It shall be no greater than 100% of the existing total residential space or 900 square feet, whichever is less. And I know we were talking about that to try and get some of those 900 square foot.
Right, we wanted to make sure that, yeah, some of the smaller homes,
Yeah.
yeah. So in I, which gets to the off-street parking,
Yep.
so our 5.7 requires at least two off-street parking spaces per dwelling unit, but then it also requires that there be available parking for guests.
One guest.
And so we should make sure that we comply, or that that's stated there. And
Do you have a number of spaces required for guests? I didn't see that in the, is it
One, I
just
believe
one?
it's just one guest.
Yeah,
2 spaces plus 1.
Plus one.
Plus one.
yeah.
Per dwelling unit. Guess. I'm guessing that that's probably gonna be the most prohibitive piece of your
Yeah.
bylaw, is to try to figure out how to fit 5 vehicles on a small lot.
It's been a problem before. I mean, we had to.
They gotta take Uber.
Changing around, yeah.
Your guest has to
Gotta
be
pay
a-
Uber to drive them home.
And I know we talked about sort of, at the last meeting, the sort of inherent challenge there, because there are many single-family homes where they've got 3 kids who are all learning how to drive, and so there are 5 cars in the
Right.
parking lot or on the street. So I think that's gonna be probably your challenge, where you're gonna be asked for quite a bit of relief. So you might wanna think about that a bit.
well, yeah, I mean, this is where we got into this discussion the last time. I mean, we have very strict requirements on basically parking, and so therefore how many vehicles can be on a property like this. But we have no similar requirements on single-family homes. And so we have a lot of houses in town with a lot of vehicles on their parcels. And why they're registering all of them, I'll never know, but they don't move.
Could you explain that to us, Mikey, why you do that?
I would say most of the bylaws I see, it's 3 or 4 spaces. So
Okay.
5 is high across the region. For dwellings to be served by on-site septic, the owner must obtain the disposals work construction permit from the Board of Health before a special permit can be obtained, to ensure that the system is gonna be able to handle this additional apartment coming online.
I think that's great that it's actually set up before the special
Right.
permit, so that we don't, just like
Don't
now,
get
we're
into-
requiring if they need Conservation Commission approval, that they get that before they come to us.
Must conform with the building code. And then the application procedure is the same as prescribed in your bylaw, section 5.3, except that it shall include a notarized letter of application from the owner stating that he or she will occupy one of the dwelling units.
And so can you explain, actually, I noticed there was a typo in B. Upon receiving it, the owner must file on subject, I guess that's okay, they're filing on the subject property, so, okay, on subject, the declaration of covenants, and that shall state that the right to rent this temporary accessory apartment ceases upon transfer of the title. So therefore, if anybody purchases it, they have to then reapply.
Yep.
Okay.
And we bake that in because the notarized letter saying that they're going.
When is going to live there.
Yes.
Right.
So when the new owner comes in, you're gonna make sure that it's not gonna be rental units. So
Okay.
they have to jump through the hoops again to get it
You need to put that in there, that they have to reapply if they, or is it?
certified.
Declaration. Okay.
And then C, oh no, I don't have it in C, section 1.5, transfer of ownership would be, so when the next person comes in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It shall terminate unless the planning board has approved a transfer to the new owner. The new owner must apply with the notarized letter again, and then must go back to the register of deeds to make that happen. The only other thing I've added in here that we didn't discuss the last time I know in your housing production plan, it talks about the need for accessible housing for people with disabilities. And so I added in this language about if they wanted to make an accessible accessory dwelling unit, that the planning board could allow reasonable deviation from the stated conditions. So maybe they need a little bit more room in order to get that ramp in or the accessible bathtub. And so you would have some leverage to say, this is an important need in our community, and we're flexible about that. And then section 1.6 is sort of the process of how accessory apartments that might have been in existence before can come into existence legally.
And that's fine and well to have it in there, but how many people are actually going to do
Yeah,
that?
probably
right?
not many,
Yeah,
but.
okay.
And then 1.7 and 1.8 are just your standard boilerplate of if it's in conflict with other bylaws. And so
Right.
if it was challenged in court. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward bylaw at the end of the day. Much less complicated than the inclusionary zoning one I wrote for you.
Yeah, right.
So I'm wondering if you feel like there's anything missing, things that need to be added other than the space for guests and just switching the language on 1.3C.
Yeah. Well, I see another hand up.
Is this a bylaw proposal?
Yeah, it's a proposal that we would be considering to,
We were trying to figure out if it's a specific location.
yeah, no, to go before town meeting in May, to
We don't
begin
have
to sort of implement some of the recommendations of the housing production plan that was done 2 years ago and that we're working on as the state encourages more variety of housing in each community. Well, you answered all the questions that I had on it. Now, this is all new to you, Mike. You hadn't seen
Yeah,
it.
no, I read through it all.
Okay.
No, I think she did a very good job.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah,
So-
I'm clear on all that.
yeah.
I will say our schedule looks like you have, so Corinne, my coworker, will be here next month to talk with you about your open space development bylaw and some of the changes that could be made to that. And then you'll have sort of until January 15th to get us comments on both of them. And we feel like that gives you some reasonable time to sit with it, mull it over. And then will give us enough time to make whatever edits are needed prior to going to a public hearing and town meeting in May.
And Wilma, can we get Michael the material that was provided by Corinne on, he has it?
Yes,
Okay,
I have
great.
that.
All right, good.
Yeah.
So that's on the open space development plan?
Yep.
Okay, great. All right.
So my only thing is, I have to say this is I'm leaving PVPC at the end of the month.
Oh, sure.
Oh, no.
So it was nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
And so your contact moving forward is gonna be Becky Bash. She is a senior planner in the land use section. I've sort of updated her on all of this, and so she'll be waiting if you have any comments.
Okay,
She will sort of take this over the finish line.
She'll be in at some point.
Thank you, Ashley.
Yes.
She will probably, you'll facilitate your comments via email, and then in the grant that we received from the state, we do have funding to be at the public hearings and the town meeting if you need assistance with those. So that's probably when you would see her.
We'll have to have a public hearing on this in
we
January.
would have to, yeah. we have-
Prior to their
to-
May meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
I think we sort
Yeah.
of envision the accessory dwelling units, the open space development, and if you did want to move forward
Yeah.
with that inclusionary
Right.
zoning.
All
of the
happening
above.
yeah, actually, before you leave PVPC, can you just make sure to send me again the latest draft version of that inclusionary zoning bylaw that you worked on?
Be easy enough.
Okay,
I'll resend the report too, so you've got all the
Okay.
information that sort of made those decisions.
okay, great.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to work with you guys.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Thank you.
My
Thank you,
favorite
Ben.
planning boards.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Actually, Wilma, I want to make sure, where is that odor language that we had, the information that they provided? I want to make sure you get that in the Tree Works file. And there was, I thought they also, okay, all right. So moving right along, I apologize to those who are here for all of the things on the agenda tonight. Now I need to find my agenda. Do you have another agenda there for me, Wilma? Okay. Michael, is Mr. Slawski here as well, or?
No, he's not.
Okay,
Richard Schlowski isn't here, or his sister Margaret Furstenberger.
okay.
They're co-owners of the property on North Hatfield Road.
Okay, so we had one of these come up at our last meeting. So the Slawskis, if you go to, on October 8th, they reported to the community as required under Chapter 61A, which is the Ag Property Tax Relief Program, that they wanted to take their property of 26 acres out of agriculture because they have a bona fide offer to purchase the property. And in doing so, under the state law, and I have a copy of this for each of you, and really what you want to look at is beginning with the second paragraph. So under Chapter 61A, a landowner receives, in effect, a reduced tax bill because they are maintaining their land, in this case, for agricultural use. And I know this property had been rented for many years to the Williams family. And basically, in return for that tax break, they have to notify the town when they're going to change the use, either themselves or sell the property to have a change of use. And the town has the option to exercise, and I'll read this for the audience, the option to exercise a right of first refusal on the property within 120 days of receiving a notice from the owner that complies with the law. So that would be as of October 8th, which is the notice to the town that they wish to sell it with the bona fide offer. After exercising the first refusal option, so if the town does elect to exercise this right of first refusal, they must acquire the land within 90 days unless the owner offers an extension. So the town has up to 120 days to elect to exercise the right of first refusal. It could do that on the first day, and if it does, it has 90 days in which to actually purchase the property at the same price that's been offered in the bona fide offer. So the landowner is made whole. The municipality may exercise its first refusal option to buy the land, or it may transfer that first refusal option to an eligible conservation organization like a land trust, who then must also acquire the land for the same price within the 90 days. The idea being that they could then potentially work out some kind of transaction to protect the property. The whole idea is that this right of first refusal by the town or transferring it to a land trust is to actually protect the property from potentially the development that would occur otherwise. So on the case that we had the last time, it was only 1 acre of land, if you remember, that was being taken out of 61A, and it was in a somewhat residential neighborhood. I think that you'll see on the property description here that's provided, this property is actually all in agricultural use. It's in between Straits Road and North Hatfield Road. I had actually talked to, at Rich's request, I had been working with Rich and his exploration of protecting this property through the state's Farmland Protection Program, the APR program. And we ran into a bit of a roadblock because the property soils do not meet the current criteria that the state applies, which actually, quite frankly, is being driven by the federal government and the matching money that's available from the federal government. Because just 2 parcels away, the Regish property, lot 110 on the map, is protected with the APR program. And then across the road on Straits Road is there's Williams property, there's Williams land that's protected by the APR program as well. So the hope was that they would add this into that, and of course, if all of this had occurred probably 5 or 6 years ago, it'd probably be in the APR program at this point. So on the last one, we actually did not recommend to the town, to the Board of Selectmen, that they consider investigating exercising the right of her first refusal. We'll have a discussion about this, but on this particular property, I personally would like to have us recommend that the town explore investigating its right of first refusal. I know of 2 farmers who are interested in buying this property if it were at a price that they could afford, which of course at $430,000 it's not. As a member of the Ag Commission in town, I've discussed this property with the Kestrel Land Trust, and they've at least expressed interest in potentially working with the town and stepping in and purchasing the property and then putting together a protection deal. So again, the Sluzwowskis would get their $430,000, but there would potentially be an opportunity to protect the property. Of course, they're not going to do that unless they know they can put a couple ducks in a row. And I would hope that we would not have to use all of the 120 days that are allowed under the law, but at least quickly see if we can work something out with Kestrel Land Trust and have the Board of Selectmen at least not exercise their right of first refusal, but investigate exercising their right of first refusal. They're just asking us for a recommendation. It's up to the Board of Selectmen to make a decision as to whether or not they either investigate and then exercise, or investigate and decide not to exercise the right of first refusal.
With the hopes of, if it was, to keep it as an open space and farmland, as opposed to some type of development, a housing development or a...
Yeah, so I mean, at $430,000, I mean, Michael, there's A&R, there's only potentially 3 house lots on here. So no one's, I mean, they must be assuming that they're going to do some kind of subdivision, or? Yeah. So I mean, even if this were protected and there were, the protection proposal required, you know, putting 2 house lots on Straits Road and 1 house lot on North Hatfield Road, you're looking at only 3 houses as opposed to significantly more with an interior road. But again, that's all up to whether or not something can be worked out and the numbers work for Kestrel Land Trust and of course the Sluzwowskis of getting $430,000, because they have to meet, no matter what happens, if the right of first refusal is exercised, you have to meet the bona fide offer, and they've submitted a bona fide offer as of October 8th, and the clock starts on October 8th, not today. So we're already...
We're now to almost to 90 days now, or
Right.
tomorrow will be.
Right. So I don't know when, Michael, do you know when the Board of Selectmen was going to put this on their agenda? They probably have a meeting next week?
The Selectmen already had it on their agenda, okay? I believe it was last week or the week before. And they were okay with releasing it from 61A, but they wanted to hear from the other boards before they actually signed off on it.
Okay.
They figured that, that it was, to the best interest of the town if the other boards got their say on the Conservation Commission, Planning Board.
And so the Ag Commission met on this subject earlier this evening, and they voted to recommend to the, and to pass along to the Board of Selectmen that they recommend that they investigate exercising the right of first refusal on this particular property.
My vote is to, the same. I'd like to see the Board of Selectmen take a look at this, to investigate it. I don't know what the other board members.
Yeah, I would agree with Paul.
So I guess what,
Can
we
you
need
get
a motion?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make a motion to exercise the,
Well, we're only recommending. 'cause it-
recommending
Yeah,
the board investigate the right of first refusal.
I'll second that.
okay, so we have a motion on the floor to recommend to the Board of Selectmen that they investigate exercising the right of first refusal on the Swazowski property, map 206, block 147-1, and we would then communicate that officially to the Board of Selectmen, Wilma. We have a second, is there a,
I have a question.
Question.
I have a
Yeah.
question
yeah,
to Michael. Do you have a closing date with the buyer?
We have a closing date, tentatively set at December 15th.
okay,
December 15th of this year, 2018.
Yeah.
right, so that's another
45 days.
45 days. I mean, I would hope that, again, the 120 day, I mean, this is a big window. It's 100 and, I mean, for anybody that's trying to put together numbers, maybe 100 and 210 days doesn't seem like a lot, but 120 days for the owner, plus 90 to buy it. But of course, at that point, they've already agreed to buy it. So, but still, I mean, these guys want to get their money, and I know Rich has been, he's been dealing with this property for a long time.
Yeah. That's why I feel like I hate to see it pushed back to a point where it would go outside of Michael's
Right.
timeframe.
Michael, does the 430 purchase price, does that include the house?
No.
Okay, it's just the raw land. Okay, the house is going to be held separate.
It's actually
It's separate lot, yeah, I thought.
Yeah, they split it.
Divided out of the parcel,
Okay, okay,
out of the original parcel.
right. And so this purchase is just for the 26 acres. Okay. So with that,
Okay.
okay, all in favor then?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Okay, passes unanimously. So we will get this information, and I will also, on behalf of the Ag Commission.
But I
on
would
their
add that
previous
we
vote.
should move along on this. I mean,
Yes.
you
Yeah,
know,
right.
as quickly as possible for Mikey's sake and for the buyer's sake.
Right.
You know, everybody wants to do the thing right, but I hate to see it just lollygag if, you
Right.
know.
Well, Conservation will be discussing it tomorrow evening.
Oh, they will, okay,
So
so,
this should
okay.
track right up.
Okay,
Okay,
all
fine.
right, okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, Michael.
So can I just ask?
Yeah, yeah,
So when we report this to the Board of Selectmen, then they're going to have to open it up again for their discussion?
right, exactly,
Okay.
yeah. Mr. Brusco?
Yes. I should come up there, I guess?
Yeah, sure. We're in informal meeting session now, just so the folks on the that are watching on TV know. We actually started that with Ashley Eaton and Michael, and now, yeah, go ahead. All right.
Okay, I'm Stephen Brusco. Along with my wife Suzanne, we own a building lot up on Straits Road, consisting of about 3 acres, over 200 feet of frontage. Right next door, 11 years ago, we put up 6 townhouses. I believe that we could certainly put up 6 townhouses on this lot that we're talking about right now, which I think is gonna be considered to be 198 Straits Road, because the one where the townhouses are presently situated, that's 200 Straits Road. I would prefer, and I'm asking for guidance on how to go about the process of being granted the ability to construct 6 condominiums in 3 separate dwellings instead of 6 condominiums in 1 dwelling, 1 multifamily dwelling.
So 3 two-family dwellings,
Basically,
basically.
yes.
So you need 60,000 square feet for a two-family dwelling.
Correct.
And,
And 4,000 square feet for each dwelling thereafter, for a total of 76,000 square feet. Which again, that would be in 1 building consisting of 6 condominiums like the one right next door.
mm-hmm,
And for a whole bunch of different reasons, I'd rather not do that. I'd rather, if possible, board can guide me to some way to split it up aesthetically, better living conditions for the people that would end up living within these dwellings.
Well, actually, the two-family dwelling, if you were gonna do it as, this is, well, it's in the rural residential zone. So if you were gonna do a two-family dwelling,
Right,
so side by sides,
right.
you need 60,000 square feet
Correct.
for each of those
Correct.
dwellings. You don't need the other 4,000 square feet per
Correct.
unit, okay? So if you wanted to get 6 in there, you'd need 180,000 square feet,
And
right?
there's not that there, there's about 120-ish to 100, I think there's about 130, because I think there's a little bit over 3 acres.
So, oh, okay, I see what
So
you're,
I guess
yeah.
what I'm really driving at is how, okay, on Elm Street, there's condominiums down there. I guess they're considered to be two-family dwellings.
No, the newest one, the one that was Parada's property?
No,
The one,
Hatfield Village.
Oh, that was over 55 community, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this could be over 55 community too, if need be. I'm not saying it won't be.
Well, I think what we would want to do is, this is the first time we've really had a chance to sort of talk about this.
Correct.
Is to be able to sort of explore this a little bit and take a look at what, because I agree with you, I mean, if you're going to do 6 units,
Yeah, I'd rather
as opposed to
not-
have them all in one big
I would
building.
just rather not put up another rectangle. I'd like to split it up a little bit. And,
But you feel you need to have 6 units in order to make this work for you?
well, there's enough acreage there to put up 6 units.
If you did it just in a big
One building.
One building.
building?
Yeah. And I would try to utilize, I mean, the fact that there is 3 acres there, I would try to, maximize the ability to put as many units as possible.
There's a note here, it says 3.8 acres? Or is it 3 acres?
It's actually 2.8, but
Oh, it's-
I think I'm in the process of picking up 20 more feet on Straits Road to make it over 3 acres.
My notes say 3.8
Yeah.
acres now.
So
2.8. It's
So it should be
2.8.
2.8.
So that's a typo.
So it's a typo.
It's
Yeah, that's a
2.8.
typo. It's
Okay.
2.8 right now, but I'm gonna pick up 20 feet on Straits Road.
It's a real typo.
And I'm basically looking for guidance. I'm gonna apply for a permit as soon as possible, but I would just like to go in the right direction, so I'm not spinning my wheels.
I don't,
I've had it perked recently. It's basically all set to go.
Yeah, so the difference between, say, what you're suggesting and, the Hatfield Village is that Hatfield Village had to meet other specific requirements in
I'm
terms
not
of,
aware of that.
yeah, in terms of the over 55, if you
Right.
will. And it has to be on a public sewer. It has to be on the public sewer, those developments. And they have to fall within one of the following areas: close to heavily traveled streets, areas close to business, commercial, educational districts, areas already developed for multifamily use. So that is why that could fall on Elm Street as opposed to on a rural street or Straits Road. I mean, is this a stretch of Straits that's still dirt? It's still,
No.
this is,
it's paved.
that's the paved end? Okay.
I've got a plan here for you.
You have a plan of the
No,
lot or
I've got a
of what
plan
you?
of the parcel that I'm talking about relative to, there's 6 townhouses here that we put up 11 years ago. This is Depot Road, this is Straits Road, right here is the parcel that I'm talking about right now, consisting of 2.8 acres plus 20 feet which it's gonna be over 3 acres.
Oh, and these are the two house lots that we gave you with the
Yeah,
frontage on
the
Depot
driveway.
Road, but
That's
you have the
correct.
access
And
off of Straits Road,
those
right?
recently got sold to a gentleman, and he's gonna be putting a single-family house here, and I don't know what he's gonna do with this other lot. So
Okay.
As far as I know right now, probably nothing.
All right, well, I think we have something that we all should think about. And it's sort of an interesting conundrum because you could put, you know, I mean, you could get 6 units on there.
Oh, I think I can put up the 6 units in another rectangle.
Right.
I just think aesthetically and, for privacy for the people that are gonna be living there, I would like to split it up with 2 here, and 2 back here.
All right, well, we're not in a position to make
Right,
any decisions
right,
tonight.
right.
but
I understand
yeah.
that. I'm just looking for
Yeah,
guidance. 'cause
yeah, I'm not even sure we're in a position to give you guidance at this
Okay.
point, but I think we can, but since we know now what it is you're talking about and we're looking at what the numbers are, we can, I mean, we should all think about this.
Yep.
and-
But I'm interested in going to I guess I start the process with the building inspector, to apply for something.
Well, you'd have to, you should check in with Wilma on the whole process of applying for a
Okay.
special permit. This would definitely require a special permit.
An SPA,
Anything more than that, just an SPI?
1.13.
Well,
right?
so two-family detached dwelling is actually by right in the rural residential zone, but the multifamily dwelling, 3 to 6 units, requires a site,
An
special
SPA.
permit with site plan review.
Right.
So,
Right.
so right now, he doesn't have the lot coverage to do the two-family detached dwellings. And so now we're looking at rather multifamily dwelling townhouses with 3 to 6. Okay. Yeah, it's sort of an interesting quirk in our bylaws, which this is, sort of brings it to the fore, so,
Yep.
okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. So my next step is to,
You check in with Wilma,
Wilma.
and then we can, we should all mull this over and think about it ourselves. And I mean, the
Steve, did you
dimensional
sign?
requirements, unfortunately, are
Will you?
not there, but. All right,
This versus that.
Jamie Fallon.
Hello?
Hi there.
I'm going to stand. I've been sitting for a little while.
Yeah, that's fine.
My name is Jamie Fallon. I'm a commercial broker with Goggins Real Estate out of Northampton. We're here today. I'm joined by a couple of other gentlemen that are working on a transaction with me for the former Holy Trinity Church that's located at 79 Main Street. We're looking to get a real estate transaction. I'm representing the buyers. Tony Graves is over here. He works for the buyers, which are Dr. Hushka Skincare Products, which is not only a national brand, but also a brand that stretches over a number of continents here. And we're actually in Hatfield a number of years ago. They're just looking to purchase and run their administrative arm of their business here in Hatfield while they still have their manufacturing arm of the business up in the industrial park in both South Deerfield and Whately. So Tony is the executive manager of operations, so he's going to be able to give you just a brief rundown on what their daily operations are. I also have Mark Ledwell here, who is the principal for Wright Builders, who has been in touch with us about taking on the renovation. Mark did bring a little bit of information to share on what the initial plans might be. And then, of course, I have Ed Shibley here, who is with Colebrook Real Estate, who is representing the sellers, which is the diocese, the archdiocese located here in Springfield. So, and what we're doing is, obviously, we're looking to get the information out there, provide it to you, and as our predecessor just before me said, look for some guidance on how to move forward, just getting the change of use from the church to an office building. So if I might just have Tony come up, and he'll give you a little bit of background about their day-to-day operations.
So I just wrote up a brief little summary of who we are and what we're looking to do.
Again, my name's Tony Graves from Dr. Hauschka's Skincare. I'm the Executive Director of Operations. I've been with Dr. Hauschka's Skincare for almost 25 years now. We started off over here on North Street with Dave Short's building in 1993, and in 2008, we moved our entire operation to the South Deerfield Industrial Park. We do not manufacture here in the United States. All the manufacturing is done in at Velden, Germany, and then we import the products here into the United States, and we distribute and market throughout the entire country. So 79 Main Street, which is our goal to move back into, or move into, but back into Hatfield, would be administration use only. It is not for retail sales. The public does not come into the office. Currently, we have 16 in-house employees that range anywhere from sales, marketing, customer service, finance, and ITS. We have a standard operation of 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. The parking, there is plenty of parking over at the church. Typically, even with our 16 employees, with future growth, a lot of that growth is in the sales and marketing, and those are remote employees that would be hired and would be spread out through the United States. So I think in general, our products are all natural products. Again, they've been manufactured for over 30 years in Germany. We're an established company. We're an established company in this area, and we're really looking forward to moving back to Hatfield. Our renovations would be mainly cosmetic and interior, and then at the same time, we would kind of beautify the grounds that the church has there currently now. So
You're not planning on changing the look of the,
no, maybe some paint.
take the steeple down maybe, or, but?
Yeah, that's kind of what we're talking about now, yeah.
Not allowed.
Spruce it up a little.
So you say your current in-office staff consists of 16 employees?
Yes,
and-
we also have a warehouse that's in South Deerfield in the industrial park, and that would remain there.
So this would, this is in the town center zone.
Correct.
And this would fall under 4.18, professional, medical, and business offices and services. Are you less than 15,000 square feet? Do you know what this?
Yes, we are 8,000 square feet.
So that would, in town center business, require, just as we did with Tree Works, a site plan review, a special permit with site plan review is what, if you were to look at our use table. And so I would think, I mean, I know I'm assuming that's why the other folks are here. We're looking at probably more traffic issues than anything else. You're not, I mean, that would be perhaps some of the.
Employee traffic.
Yeah, but that would probably be one of the things you would want to, you're definitely not going to get a waiver on the traffic analysis, I think. I mean, there's a fair amount of traffic on Main Street from the potato farm right down the street, but, and of course, when the church was there, there was traffic at least on Sundays.
Correct.
Saturday afternoons and Sundays, but, so that, I mean, would you be looking at altering any of the, I'm thinking now of the conversation we had with Tree Works. They're moving into an existing building and not making any major changes to that building except perhaps external cosmetics.
Yeah. So we do have Mark from Wright Builders.
Yeah. I have a little info here, just to kind of initially get things going for everybody. Put these down for now. I have some smallish plans here that are easy to pass around, not quite so easy to read, but they'll give you a general idea. As a look, you can look at that larger board. You may have a couple there.
I do have a couple here. Maybe you might
Yeah.
want to make
I can pass
one or two of these available to the
Sure.
folks in the back. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. There's a couple more to pass around. You interested, or? So,
What is this?
just for, I mean, I'm sure the board and many people know the location, but just we brought a few pictures Just to remind people what this is, this church is on 79 Main Street. The Holy Trinity Church, it's a Catholic church. Fairly contemporary building, built in 1969. And they're just showing here a little elevation. There is the steeple. There's another elevation showing coming up the walk. And just a little aerial view of the property. The project will not do any substantial modifications to the building on the exterior. There's no additions planned. All religious items, details will be removed by the church, which will include the cross on the steeple, which will include stained glass windows that are in the front that will be replaced with different facade, and certainly throughout the buildings, any things of religious significance will be removed by the diocese. The work really is all interior, and maybe put this up and maybe try to give people a sense. I don't know which, if everybody, maybe.
Well, they have the copies back there, so that's good. This way the camera can see
Okay,
it,
good.
so that's fine.
So down here, here's a floor plan of the basic building. It is about 8,000 square feet. And this area shows the first floor. And the sanctuary is by far the biggest part of the building. Office space is planned in here. You can see some drawings of sort of like open cubicles. The intention will be wood and glass, little divided office spaces, some common open area for people. But it's really nothing but office here. There'll be a little minor modification of some storage space to an IT room. Bathrooms will be fully renovated. And then there'll be a sort of a training section, I guess, is that what we call it?
Yeah, where we do staff trainings and we would have.
Different products go up and they learn how to use the products. They learn how to go out and sell the product, I assume, and train the people in salons everywhere to use stuff. So that's really what this area is intended to be. Downstairs is really quite simple. It's just a wide open area. There'll be bathrooms here. There's a there's a mechanical room here that all remains. And then there's an open space, staff room, little kitchenette will go in. And then there'll be open space for all company meetings or whatever you might have, that space. The building is about 8,000 square feet. I have reviewed it with the building commissioner and the fire chief. The ground floor is fully accessible now, but the building is not, and it will be made fully accessible with a lift, a personal lift, which will be in this rear stairwell. And it will be a 3-stop lift, a half a floor up and half a floor down. When you come in the back, you're you're in between the floors. So you go 4 feet down and 4 feet up, basically. And so this lift, which will be nice, an enclosed lift, it's called a shaft lift. So it's not a wide out in the open, it looks sort of like an elevator. And so that will meet all our accessibility requirements. The bathrooms will be modified as needed to meet all those requirements. The building will become sprinklered because of its size. It exceeds the 7,500 square foot limit. I think the exact number we came up, which is pretty tough in this building, the way it's shaped, is 8,032 square feet. So that does meet that. It's going to be, on the exterior. Other than initially some glass changes here in this front facade. Certainly some cleanup, perhaps on the grounds.
Yeah, I mean, the landscaping, it's really overgrown right now, so being who we are with our natural products, we would basically bring that back to, to show the nature and the products of what we actually, the ingredients that we have in our products, so.
So,
no changes to the configuration of the building.
So I think without getting into a public hearing, because you've already provided, we should get these back to you so you can use them again.
But you're gonna be wanting to bring them back.
Yeah, I'll let the other members of the board make any comments that they wish. The ones that I would make in terms of, if looking for guidance, you'd be applying under 4.18, business offices and services,
Less than
less than 15,000 square feet, which in the town center zone would require special permit with site plan review, so you'd go through that process. I think, given the location of the building on Main Street, you're going to be looking and be very mindful and pay attention in your presentation of materials to us on traffic. You've already talked about the facade and the site as it faces Main Street. You know, the traffic is not only your employees, but are you going to have reps come in there, you know, that kind of thing. You don't need to answer these questions today, but, you know, how many meetings are you going to hold? You know, you have people working remotely, but are they going to come in here? As you mentioned, there's some training, and you have a learning center in there, so there could be more than, so is the parking going to be adequate? What the screening might be like from Main Street of some of that parking? I mean, those are the kinds of things that I think, you know, we're talking about an existing building that's been empty for a number of years, but those are the kind of issues that I know I can anticipate being asked of and raised by the board, if not by people here on Main Street.
I have a quick question. Yes. It's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that that property is zoned residential? The church property is zoned residential? Is that correct?
Well, we would have to grab our map to take a look. If it is, it's an in-holding within the town center area. I mean, we have two zones in town center. There's town center business, and then there's town center. Town center is residential. And then town center business is, for example, the property, Dutchie's property across the street that had the or right across the street here, the commercial little strip area. The rest of Main Street, if you will, is zoned town center, which is residential, but in our use table, town center and a potentially allowed use is professional, medical, and business offices and services with site plan review and special permit in town center. So yes, you're right, it is zone residential because town center is residential, and then you have town center business. But this is a potentially an allowed use with site plan review and permit.
Would abutters have to be notified?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, that's part of the special permit application. So the Tree Works folks, for example, they had to notify all of their abutters. Those addresses are provided by Wilma. They have to mail them out. Apparently, none of their abutters came to the meeting tonight. I know that some of the abutters went to their community meeting that they held back in August, but not to tonight's meeting.
When you say abutters, how far out do you go from the property?
300 feet.
300 feet.
300 feet. The abutter and to the abutter of the abutter.
And parking is there space behind the fence that Judy Strong put up?
Yes, definitely. There's a big chunk back in there.
Yeah, sure.
I'm not sure who Judy Strong is, but there's a large. Yeah, the diocese came when we sold the rectory.
Yeah.
Diocese came to the planning board and did an A&R plan, Form A, and carved out the required 45,000 square feet, but reserved the parking behind the house where Judy Strong used to live. She purchased that. So that,
That's zone rural
and that
residential,
was
not
purposely,
221.
You know, the design of the new lot
Well, here's North
was
Street.
purposely made that way so we could reserve parking for any future use of that building. So that's right across the way on Bay Street.
Yeah, okay. With this proposal,
It's past North Street, right?
would you anticipate
No, that's
if there would be
Swansea's.
any parking on Main Street at
Bay
any
Street.
time at all?
There would not.
No.
But it's all,
There's about 40 spaces
Well, here's town center right
More than
there,
adequate.
that little,
Plus, there's
this
additional.
dotted line.
There are spaces right behind
To
the
the rear
building.
of the building.
Yeah.
Plus, the abutter put up a beautiful fence to cover up anything you've got in your parking. You couldn't ask for better. That's like God sent that.
When we came in with Form A, one of the requirements was that anybody that uses that parking lot would take the first left and come out the other way, so the lights from their car in the evening wouldn't spray on the abutter's house, but the fence took care of that.
Yeah, perfect.
So you will have ample opportunity during the public hearing to not only hear a full presentation by the applicant, but also then to ask any questions or raise any concerns. And, you know, not knowing what the outcome would be, but as I mentioned in the introduction to the Tree Works hearing, a decision can be made to approve the special permit site plan approval, to approve it with conditions. And this board has actually been prone to place conditions on a number of such projects, or to reject the project. So approve, reject, and then in the middle, approve with conditions such as screening and that type of thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just a established relationship with this business in town and a great history. But now once this changes to the business use, it will remain so. It may be another business there and another occupant. What restrictions would fall under those future uses?
So if there's a change of use or a change of owner, and they would be required to come in to meet with the planning board again. I mean, we had a situation out on Route 5 where essentially the use, it changed hands, it's different owner, but it was essentially the same use. But they still had to come in for for approval from the planning board, and it allowed the neighbors to come in and raise some issues in light of how the previous business had been operated, and we had an opportunity to raise those with the new applicant, the new owner. So, yeah, I mean, unless someone tears that place down and builds a house, it's going to look like that, right? So it's a matter of who's in there and what they're doing. But you're right. So we would have to review what the use is. Especially, need to go through the use table again. But right now it's not retail, and so
Not now.
I wouldn't want retail there. But
You would really like to.
restaurant, it certainly would, those would be the kinds of things that we would be reviewing. But even if it was just another office building, they would still have to come in for approval.
You could even have a package store there. That's allowed in town center. For example.
Yeah.
On in.
And when was the last time that the board modified the definition of uses for the town center? How long have we lived with this definition?
It certainly predates me on the planning board. It probably goes back to the last major overhaul of the zoning bylaw, which was in 2001 or 2, I believe it was. 2003. So.
Well, across the street, actually. That's town center, where the center school is.
Right. No, in terms of not, I think what he's asking is, when was the use table modified? Yeah, so this goes back to that major overhaul of the zoning bylaw, which was after the master plan process, and I'm just looking at the date here, and it was May of 2003. So, yeah, yes.
One more question. You talked about doing landscaping. Does that entail removing the steps or the ramp area?
No, we would keep the.
Can you expound a little bit?
Yeah,
what you're
the
doing
plan would
there?
be to keep the ramp, it would be to repave, because the concrete is kind of crumbling on that, so we would kind of bring that back to where it should be, but the ramp access, we believe, is necessary. What we would probably do is pull out a lot of those shrubs that are overgrown right now, and have that landscaped with more flowers and plants.
Well, what about the front steps?
They would be refinished.
Okay, so you plan on.
They need repair.
They need repair, yeah, they're actually crumbling, yeah.
I have two questions.
Okay, go ahead, Michael.
First, I didn't catch it earlier. This would be a purchase?
Correct.
All right. And what drew you to this particular, there's office buildings all over the
Yep.
place.
So one of the ideas, one is we were here in Hatfield before, so we actually love the community. It has that farming, agriculture feel that where our products are actually manufactured in Germany is actually within a farming village, about 45 minutes from Stuttgart, which is more of an industrial place. So Hatfield has always had this feel of where our products have been manufactured. We also want to keep our warehouse in South Deerfield, but we also want to be in a close proximity to our warehouse and our staff there. So this allows 10 minutes up the road, office staff could actually be at the warehouse, helping in the warehouse facility. And also, to be honest, it's really an opportunity for us to actually purchase a building. It's a beautiful building, it just needs a little work on the inside, and it was a reasonable price. To renovate a church is also an interesting project.
It is. If I may, aesthetically, this building was designed by notable local architects, Bednarski Stein, and, at kind of the height of their careers. They've designed a lot of things you see up on Sugarloaf, stuff hanging out in space. I've built several buildings for John Bednarski, and Art Stein was his partner. It's really a neat building. It's gonna be a very nice space. I think that's what attracted you as well. That, not everybody's a contemporary tastes, and it sort of does jump out a little bit in a very traditionally designed town, a lot of traditional buildings.
Because of this open area.
Very nice.
It allows, because we have sales and marketing team that's in there that strategizes and they work together. This allows them to be in an open workspace environment where we're not siloed off into individual offices. And this actually comes as that, and it's a small amount of cosmetic renovation instead of putting up a lot of walls and interior offices.
I like it.
Yeah, the interior reminds me of the Deerfield Town Hall,
Sure.
their annex area, yeah.
Yep, and with some floor-level changes with the altar and everything.
Right.
So it's a pretty neat space, frankly. I think that was attractive to you, just how it was.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. Hopefully you got the guidance you were looking for. but- Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, we have to do minutes.
Jamie. Tell him, say you saw Paul Labby last night, and I'm alive and well. No, Pat. Yeah.
I will.
Tell him I'm alive and well.
Yes,
Okay.
gentlemen.
All right, good.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
It's a great idea. I'd like to see it on the tax rolls.
We got to do some minutes. Let's do those really quick, because otherwise, all of our other conversations are going to get.
Thank you. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
take care. Yeah, good night.
See you, Tony. Yeah.
It's
great. Yeah, I do. And there are two women there, just to piss.
We have other,
They're not gonna be here forever.
Michael, you haven't been at these, so,
Right.
yeah, so you won't be able to vote. But
Right.
we have a quorum of the rest of us, as long as we were in attendance. But we have to do, it's been a while since we've had a quorum, so we have quite a few minutes backed up. So we've got, I was starting at the end. So we have October 3rd, and myself and Paul were both at that meeting. That's when we dealt with the right of first refusal on the Robleski property and recommended that the town not take action on that because of the size of the parcel and its
Yeah,
location.
it was pretty small.
And then Mr. Wendelowski wanted to talk about putting in the
Right, home occupation.
home occupation.
Plumbing. in a-
Plumbing on
in a
on
rural
Birch.
residential.
Yeah, and we
Yep.
told him we weren't able to do that. And then Mr. Lamprin, actually much to the question that was asked earlier, asked about just wanting to change the existing use of the commercial building there behind
Grill and Chill.
Grill and Chill, and so do I have a motion to accept these minutes as written?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes
I'll
of
second 'em.
October 3rd, 2018.
I'll
as
second
written.
'em.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And then our
September.
September
Number
5th.
5.
Okay. So now we're at September 5th. Three of us were here.
Yeah.
Um,
Similar, the same property, 62 Dwight Street.
Oh, she came in to see what might be allowed prior to, okay, and then Ashley was here and that's when we discussed the accessory dwelling unit bylaw, gave her feedback. And then Mr. Wobleski just stopped in to talk about his 61A. And Corinne met with us to talk about initial conversation about the open space development bylaw. And then that was the first time that we met with Mr. Zawicki of Green Skies regarding the 5 megawatt ground mounted solar project out on Main Street, just south of the Whately line. And they're actually coming in for a hearing, right? Is that still
Tomorrow
scheduled?
night. Yeah.
With Conservation Commission, and then they're on our agenda for December 5th,
Yep.
right?
I think
That's where the
it.
airport was, right?
Right,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
airport was. So, do I get a,
Wait a minute, I just got a question.
Yeah.
Deborah Buck came in on 62 Dwight Street. That's the same place that,
Right.
what's his name wanted to put a plumbing shop?
right,
Okay, all right.
same one,
Right.
yep.
Okay.
All right, do I have a motion to accept the minutes of September 5th, 2018?
I make a motion to accept the minutes of September 5th, 2018
All
as
right.
written.
Second.
Second, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Oh, and I should note that we also had an informal meeting with the Tree Works folks at that one. That was after their community meeting, so it was an opportunity to catch up with them. All right, wow, June 6th. So myself, Paul, and Paul were here. That we actually had a full complement. But the three of us were here, so we have, that was, again, Mr. Robleski. He was here for the approval not required for the lot he wanted to cut off on that Depot Road property. Mr. Glover came in to talk about his conservation restriction on Old Stage Road. Corinne was here to talk about the open space development bylaw, and I believe that was the first time that we met with the Tree Works people.
Yeah, I remember, yeah.
The elected officers, myself as chair, Paul as alternate chair, Paul Dostal as alternate chair, Paul Labby as secretary, and we had Pioneer Valley Planning Commission Planning Board rep was Rick Bertram. We're gonna have to vote on that since he's not on the board anymore. And that was Ron Sassi's last meeting. We thanked him for his services. Can I get a motion to accept the minutes of June 6, 2018 as written?
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes of June 6th, 2018.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, so, boy, it's been a while, Wilma, huh?
Just knocking them out.
April 4th, again, the three of us were here, along with Rick Bertram. That was our public hearing on the recreational or marijuana establishment bylaw.
I was
So-
not here that day.
Yeah, that's right. So we read through the bylaw. We sort of explained what the town's options could be relative to marijuana establishments, and then we went through the bylaw. We had people here that asked questions. There were some comments made. Actually, Mr. Sullivan was, James Sullivan on Plantation Road was here that night, as was Joe LaValle, who is here again tonight. We had informal conversations with John Robleski on his A&R for the Depot Road, and Jeannie Mosick provided us with the actual recorded conservation open space restriction on her property, recorded at Hampton County Registry of Deeds. We talked about the fact that there was some discussion being had at the select board of possibly putting a solar array on the town well site. And in anticipation of maybe being asked about that, we discussed it, and it was the sense of the board that we would not support a solar array on that sensitive area. George and Angela Berwick of Old Mill Inn provided us a letter complaining about Airbnbs in town, but there was really no action on our part, because we're not, but we did suggest that it be brought up by the Board of Health. So with that, do I have a motion to accept the minutes of April 4th, 2018? Paul, you want to do it again?
Yeah, do it again, Paul.
I can't, can I vote on it? I wasn't here.
We can't do it.
Oh, that's
can't.
right, you
I
weren't
wasn't
here.
here.
Actually, so we don't have a well, how do we deal with
Going
this? There's
to.
only two of us that are still here. Paul wasn't here, and then Ron and Rick are no longer on
here.
the board.
Let's ask this guy. He knows everything about the law as pertains to this.
Rule of necessity.
Mm,
There you go.
yeah,
Make your motion.
yeah. You make a motion, Paul. I mean,
Okay.
there's no, we don't have any choice.
I make a motion to accept the minutes of January 10th, 2018.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Aye, aye.
And then January 10th, we have,
Wait a minute, hold on a second. Did I screw that up? Was that April 4th?
April
Yeah,
4th.
April
Yeah,
4th.
April 4th.
Right. Did you get that?
Can you
Wilma?
fix that for me?
Yeah.
I have it.
Okay.
All right, so now, January 10th, we have Paul, and myself are all here. We,
The only thing you need to be concerned about is Diamondback on the second page.
oh, that's right,
where
because we
made
had
the
to amend
change.
this, right. The original minutes, we actually had adopted the original minutes, but we had neglected, and there was an oversight on our part that we did not include, if you remember, we had our dearly departed town council with us that night, and he recommended that we have individual motions on each of the special permit findings, the site plan approval findings, and the findings for commercial development performance standards that had been submitted by the applicant. And we actually entertained motions on all three, and all three were approved. And then we then made a motion and approved a special permit with site plan approval with some conditions. And so we needed to amend these minutes to reflect the fact that we had taken those three previous votes. Correct, Wilma? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, so we are actually looking for a motion to accept the minutes of January 10th, 2018 as amended to reflect the addition of those three motions regarding this special, the findings.
I'll make a motion to accept the meetings of January 10th, 2018 as
Amended.
amended.
I second the motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, so we have two more items. One is the Pioneer Valley Planning Board representative. So each planning board has a representative to the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. They attend their, they have I think maybe quarterly meetings. It's not that often.
No, it isn't often.
And it's an opportunity to meet with other planning boards in the region, in their region, and also to get updates from Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. So we need to have a representative for that. I'm pretty sure it's about 3 meetings a year. They have an annual meeting, which we're always invited to attend. So is there anyone interested in doing this?
I'll do it.
Okay, Michael is willing to do it. Can I get a motion to recommend, to have Michael Pasek be our Pioneer Valley Planning Commission rep for the upcoming year?
So moved.
Second, Paul?
I second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. And now, the planning board appointment. Wilma, do you have,
Yeah, I do. I gotta run and get them.
okay, all right, great. There are three, there have been, oh, are you back on?
Yes, I just.
Okay, great, thank you. So we have received three expressions of interest for the planning board vacancy of Rick Bertram. And I apologize to the community for how long this vacancy has sat open, but we needed to get an official letter of resignation from Mr. Bertram. And it took us a while to get it.
Yes,
And
it
so we finally got it. So we have, Chris Smith has expressed interest in the position and have his letter of recommendation, and Chris is here tonight. We have heard from Bob Flaherty, Jr. Some of you may know Bob is, he's the, on the he's a.
Fire department?
Fire department. I thought he was the vice chief or whatever, is he?
Yeah, he is.
Whatever,
I think so.
whatever they,
Pretty sure you're
yeah, and his application his resume isn't very extensive in terms of what he's providing in terms of background. And then the other person we've heard from is Steph Schlige, graduate of Smith Academy, and she, so we'll read through these. Actually, why don't I just read? So I'll start with Bob Flaherty. Bob Flaherty have you previously been a member? He is a current member of the Cemetery Commission. He is a firefighter paramedic. His educational special training of interest that may be relevant to the appointment is journeyman plumber and a firefighter, and as a result of being a firefighter, understands various building codes, etc. And that's all we have from Bob. If I may, Michael, just, and then we have Chris Smith, has been a current co-chair of the Hatfield Redevelopment Authority from 2015, current secretary of the Hatfield Business Association from 1988 to present, former assessor here in town with 16 years of experience in state training and GIS mapping, former member of both the 87 and then the 2001 Master Plan Committee, former member of the Industrial Development Committee, and then the former Energy Committee member chair over a various span of years. Steph Schlige has sent information along with her expression of interest. Actually, she's serving now on the Housing Committee in town, which I believe she currently is the only member of. I know there's vacancies on that committee. She's a founding member of the Hatfield Community Gardens, which just came available this year. And let's see. And she currently works for Represent.us. Represent Us is I'm not really sure what this.
They were in the paper the other day.
Yeah, they're a political action committee.
Yeah.
And so she's the co-chair of the Hatfield Community Garden, and then she's a housing committee member. So.
Okay, see that too.
Yeah. So Bob doesn't list a lot of information there, and doesn't have, and Stephanie doesn't have a lot of relevant experience. Chris has a lot of relevant experience.
She's got a Bachelor of Arts in Politics from Mount Holyoke.
Yeah, my only, go ahead, Paul.
I have a question here. Do you or your spouse, this is Bob Flaherty.
Yeah.
Do you or your spouse or your employer have any current and potential business relationships with the town of Hatfield that could create a conflict of interest? Isn't his wife on a board of health?
Yes.
I mean, why didn't he just explain that? I mean, no.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So the one thing I've been thinking about my own role in town and not speaking for any of the rest of the gentlemen on the board, but we're not getting any younger, or at least I'm not getting any younger. And
Hell, I'm doing great.
and every other committee I'm on, there's no one on the committee that's even close to.
Under 60.
Under
Yeah,
60,
under
yeah,
60.
under 60. And so I wonder if, I mean, getting someone like Steph on the board as a younger person also would provide some diversity as well, is not to the town's ultimate advantage in terms of just bringing some new blood onto an important committee. That's the one thing that I think of in light of Steph's expression of interest. I think we may have Harrison Bardwell joining. He's on the Conservation Commission, right? So that's some new blood on the Conservation Commission. And I believe he might become the representative for the Community Preservation Committee from the Conservation Commission, which would significantly reduce the average age of that committee.
Yeah.
Because right now it pretty much is, certainly everybody's over 55 anyway. So anyway, that's just one thought I have on the folks that have expressed interest in the position.
This particular position, well, they're only going to serve until May, 5 months, or I mean 6 months, whatever.
Well, and then they have to, if they wish to.
If they want to stay on.
They have to run for the remaining portion of, and this is Rick Bertram's seat, right? So do we know, he was, Ron ran last
year.
just the year before,
Right.
right, just the year before. And so he's a five-year slot, so he has, be 3 years left, I guess, at the end of this May.
Sounds right.
Yeah, so I don't know what I think Rick was the year before because he was a write-in candidate. There was no.
That's right.
There was no candidate that year.
That's right.
Paul was 2018?
Yeah. I go next May, I'm done. And I want to tell you that I'm probably going to be done. I'll be 77 years old at that time. If I took a 5-year term, I'd be 82.
Got to beat Corey Bardwell's record.
I've been
Age-wise.
I've been down the road twice with my heart. I want to certainly stay until May if I can. And-
May of 2019.
Right.
Yeah, right.
And then I would be voted. So I kind of keep that in your bonnet too, because I'm not probably going to be here after May, you know.
So there'll be other opportunities for folks to either run for the office or have another slot. So we could have as many as 3 positions on the ballot in May. The 2 that are vacant and potentially. and
Paul
then Paul's.
decides, whatever Paul decides.
Right, well, you would have to run in May anyway, right?
Right, I would
Yeah.
have to run in May.
So we'll have 3 there'll be 3 positions on the ballot in May. The 2 to fill out these 2 vacancies and then Paul's.
Well, it kind of depends on how I feel, but right now, I'm saying I think I'm going to go in May, so I want you to know that, you know.
But you may start feeling really better.
Well, if I do feel real good, yeah. I mean, I know they're going to tinker with my heart one more time. They're going to shock it to see if they can get it back in where it's supposed to be. And if that happens, I may be back to 35% of my heart like I was for 18 years anyway. So, I mean, it might be a great salvation. But then again, a lot of times it doesn't work, so.
Yeah, I can attest to that.
Yeah.
It doesn't always work.
No, it doesn't always work.
So, any other thoughts that people might have or comments they want to make on just wanted to point out the
Yeah, no,
issue
I
of-
agree. I think, I'm just kind of thinking out loud that maybe some younger blood would not be a bad idea. Maybe that would be a signal to other younger people in the community to get active in town politics. In terms of, we haven't had any young people express any interest, and I've been on the planning board for a number of years now, and not only this board, but a number of other boards. We have nobody coming up. It's my thought. So.
Me?
If you have something you'd like to say, whatever.
I agree about the younger people coming up, but also I think that the position is important, and I think people with experience are still valuable. I think that, I mean, you probably chose me because of the experience that I've had over the years with the zoning board. And we have someone that's interested in the position that, with a lot of experience in town government. So that, I would lean that way.
Well, what I would say to that, given the fact that we are going to have two positions, I mean, there's going to be two potentially challengeable positions in May, a third possibly, that we have experience now on the committee if there's an opportunity to sort of add some new, younger voice and help build that experience, build that bench strength, that we have that opportunity because we're not an inexperienced group. So there's an opportunity to mentor someone.
Do you think she would run for the position in May, or she would want to get on and then run? Because you're going to have to run in May, you know.
That's right.
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 So that was where maybe I wasn't explaining, is that give somebody an opportunity, and they, maybe she gets on the, if we chose the two people with little experience, one of them, an opportunity to say, hey, this is great, I'm going to run, or maybe this isn't so great.
Yeah, maybe I want
and
out. Yeah.
Maybe I want out.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it from the standpoint of, like you say, none of us are getting any younger. So that, I think.
So I think that we have a position right now where we have a lot of experience on the board. So it's probably as good a time as any to introduce someone new to the board who's new to the whole issue. Not anything against the experience that would be provided by Chris.
Would you run in May? Would you run in May if there was an opening slot?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, say we brought this young girl on to get her started and see what happens. Would you run? There's going to be 2 spots open more than likely. So would you run in May?
Yeah, I probably would.
Well, then there's your answer.
Because potentially there could be your spot.
Right.
And then there's going to be 2 other spots potentially. I mean, because both Michael and if Steph were to join the board and then decide to run in May, there'd still have to be, there'd be a run, there'd be an election.
Well, let's just be frankly honest here.
Yeah.
She's a sliz. What are the odds that anybody could run against her and win? 1. 2, Michael's gonna run, so you only got 1 slot open. If Paul decides not to.
Well,
Actually, you
Mike-
might have none if Paul
Stays.
feels better and
Right.
decides to run, so you might have 0.
I'm just looking at that 5-year.
I
I mean,
Right.
Christ, at 82, they'll be wheeling me in here in a wheelchair for, no, I can't raise my hand. It's okay.
That might grow a heart for you.
Yeah, right.
Stick it in.
You'll be using some of that medical marijuana there you got.
There we
There.
go.
They'll be
There
making,
we go.
they'll be making out on,
I was
right
listening
out
to
on
that guy
West
say
Street.
maybe if they put a fan through the side of the building, they could rent the space underneath the fan, you know?
Paul could just get a brownie before it
Yeah.
comes.
So we do need to make a decision here. So I am entertaining any motion anyone might want to make.
I would like to make a motion to nominate Stephanie Sliss.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. What the heck? Let her get in here and get her feet wet.
All right, there's a second. Is there any discussion? I will say that I had an opportunity to actually witness Stephanie working on organizing the community garden and putting all of that together. And it was really remarkable what she and then the steering committee did in pulling that whole thing together. And she's been extremely organized and very transparent with the Ag Committee in terms of what they've done and how they've done it. And they put together a gangbuster proposal to the Community Preservation Committee. So, so we haven't voted yet, but is there any other discussion?
She's into a lot of things, I know. I saw her on on television. She's secretary some damn place or doing something. She's got her hands in a lot of stuff.
That place in Florence, though.
Right.
Where she currently works now.
Represent us. So there's a motion on the table to extend an offer to Stephanie Slish to join the planning board. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to abstain just because I'm new and
Okay,
I
okay,
think that's probably best.
okay. So there was 3 votes aye, so it passes. Wilma, can you let Stephanie know what we're going to do?
And if there's any balk with her at all, okay, I would say we go right to Chris Smith and let it run out, let it run its 5 or 6 or 7 months out, see what the hell happens at election, and, you know, but if there's a balk, well, geez, I'm not sure. I think we ought to put him right in and let's get it over with. We've been diddling around with it for a long time. And
Well, do we want to have a motion then that if Steph Schlich, for whatever reason, elects not to want to take the position, that because we'd
Recommend.
have to wait for a whole other meeting, that we recommend Chris Smith?
I'd make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor then?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So,
I'm abstaining again.
Okay.
okay, so Stephanie would be the first choice, and then Chris would be the second alternate, if you will,
Okay.
if
Very
she
well.
chooses that she doesn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to
You could have
adjourn.
got that at
Yeah.
7:30.
Paul Dossel has made a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Our next meeting is December 5th.
Yep.
Thank you.
5th.